Hey everybody, welcome to Xavia Talks, and this is our second edition of Heartbreak and Healing with who? Your favorite, Dr. Sonia Kennedy. Today we are going to really focus on heartbreak and healing. We are going to have a special guest.
And I think you have to get fear out of the room.
Yes.
Because fear always robs you. You know, fear always talks you out of opportunities, it talks you out of love, it talks you out of, most importantly, you recognizing how valuable you are. If you fear being alone and fear brings somebody in your life and then they leave your life, what are you left with? And so fear always takes you beyond yourself and you never realize how valuable you are. And I think once you get fear out of the room, you can be comfortable in a place of peace to say, you know what, the best gift I bring anything is myself.
Sure.
And the more I develop myself, the more I know me, the more I don't have to control who comes in and out because I always have something.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that resonating thing is fear. We're afraid of being alone.
Absolutely.
We're afraid of moving forward. The fear stops us from moving forward. And the control piece, I guess, my feeling of loss of control was really my attempt to control.
Absolutely. It's
so once I let go of that and said, the hell with him.
Right. But you open yourself up for more abundant things when you do that. Because now you can experience without having this shield or this barrier around you, whatever those experiences are. And it helps you to get in touch with whatever else is going on that may be buried too, because a lot of us won't acknowledge that we still got stuff. You know, was it Bag Lady, Erica Badu's song Bag Lady? A lot of us still carrying all them bags. Guys got them too. You know,
absolutely.
It just looks different, you know, but we walking around with this stuff and it will unearth itself once you release that control. And then you can better deal with those things in categories versus it all just being on your lap and you going, what the heck? You know, all this stuff is hitting me all at once. No, it's not. It's here. It's been there 10, 15 years. You know, but you know, here's the opportunity where you can have a clean slate and really deal with each one. And I think actually I'm going to take the points out of sequence, but my last point was, you know, can I accept myself? You know, but I'm going to put it at number 3 since we're talking about dealing with the inner part. You know, am I willing to deal with myself? Am I willing to accept that I am human? You know, a lot of us don't want to be human. We want to be Superman or Superwoman. You know, if somebody says, so what do you do for a living? And it was very hard for me at one point to tell someone what I did for a living because I had my hands on so many different things. And so my offhand remark would be, I'm the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? And they're like, oh, well, what is that? I do everything. You know, I've had my hands on everything since I was a teenager. I've always been very inquisitive about things. And once I learned how to do those things, I moved on to the next challenge. But as I've gotten older, I recognize that I'm okay, and I don't have to have 20 irons in the fire. I might have 10 now, but you know, 10 is workable versus 20. But you know, can I accept that I don't have to be Superwoman? You know, can I accept that I don't have to be Superman, or that I don't have to prove, right? And that I'm human. That it's okay to make mistakes. That it's okay to, you know, try something and not be successful, or not have what you determine as success, you know, be something that you gauge your outcome by.
I think underneath all the things that we do in life, you talk about embracing your humanity, I think it's so important to recognize that we're just people.
Sure.
And I think when you recognize that you're a person with all your faults, frailties, moods, emotions, all those different kind of things, you can accept somebody else for being human also. Absolutely. Which really helps relationships, because sometimes we go in expecting somebody to be more than what we are.
Sure.
You know, we want, you know, we're not perfect, but we won't say it, but we expect them to be perfect, as if their perfection somehow makes us better, or it covers who we are. And I think embracing who we are, and I understand our own humanity, that, you know, we're all flawed, frails, has these little turns and twists in our personality and all those different kind of things. We're moody, we're all those different kind of things, and this is who we are. And you want somebody to be able to love not just what we project, but who we are really. And I think that's where love is, not and you being a talk show host, it's the person you are. It's your heart. It's the ambiance of your peace and your joy, and that you bring to any relationship. Those are what enhances relationship. If somebody's with you just because you're a talk show host, you don't need them. You know, I mean, those are variables. We want the stables in our relationships for people to really attach to.
But you know what, and that takes me to another point I'm just going to touch on real briefly, because you know, women, we often have an issue. Men will get with you because you look a certain way or portray a certain image. And you know, you don't want people with you for those superficial reasons either. You know, it's not so much, I think men with women, it's more so women, the woman that he has on his arm is almost like that's the status pieces. And then women on the other hand, you know, we get the man and he is this, that, or the other, and that's their status piece or whatever. But it's, to me, I think sometimes people who may not feel that they are where they need to be, they look for somebody that completes that image for them. So then they start to define themselves by that person that they're with. So if that person leaves, then who are you?
I'm nobody all over again.
I'm nobody all over again.
But I think that goes back to what you were saying about the cycling too. In terms of, you know, you're constantly repeating that. But then too, here we go. All right, point number 4. You know, being teachable. You know, because if we can't acknowledge that these situations are present, then how are we learning? You know, but you know, am I teachable? You know, because we're talking about checking ourselves, and we're talking about creating a new scenario, whatever that scenario is. But you know, am I teachable? I mean, really, are you teachable? Are you willing to situate yourself so that there are those opportunities where you learn a life lesson, and then you can take that and then go out in the world and be productive and have those wonderful relationships that's not built on who, you know, this person is as a status piece, or you're not looking for that other person to validate you, because a lot of people are also looking for validation in their relationships, and when that doesn't happen, then there's that anger resurfacing all over again. But am I okay now? You know, am I teachable? Am I saying, okay, you know what? Hey, I'm human. You know, I'm not in control of this person or that thing. But here, like you said, here I am. You know, flaws and all. You know, here's all my stuff. You know, no pretenses. I'm not gonna create a new, you know, name for myself on Facebook and you know, all these other spots. You know, I'm not gonna redo my image, cut all my hair off, and you know, do all these other crazy things. Go out and buy, you know, $50,000 car because it represents something. But you know, hey, I'm this person, and this is what I come with. You know, but I'm teachable. I'm receiving. You know, I'm loving life. I'm taking things in. And yeah, every day is not the best day, but it's a good day for me because I am learning something about who I am. I'm being self-aware enough to get those lessons.
And I think maturity is based off the questions you ask. You know, it's what I've learned as a man getting older is that I am not psychic. I cannot read your mind, and I won't even spend the energy trying to read your mind.
So you're not one of Dionne Warwick's friends?
Oh no. She been doing it a long time, and she got that down pat. I can't do that. I have if I need to know something, I have to being teachable is me asking questions. You know, asking deeper questions the more than where you shop or you know what kind of flower you like. I mean those. I mean, but I'm talking about really understanding who you are, and that it has to be reciprocal because you have to want to give me the information so I can learn. You know, so it absolutely goes both ways. So I think maturity is in the questions that we ask each other sometimes.
So let me make this a little bit more personal. You know, this is a talk show, so you know I was going to ask you some stuff, right? Probably seen my discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
So let me, through this divorce process, as a man, what was the biggest lesson or the most teachable moment that you came across, or what did you get out of this whole experience?
Well, I think my process really turned for me, and I write about this in the book, that I watch a lot of TV. Frasier. It's a wonderful show. I had never watched Frasier before, but one night I'm sitting on, and I used to come home from work and just spend hours just sitting on the floor, just thumbing through channels, just really depressed, didn't know how to get out of it. So I came up on this episode of Frasier one day, and some woman calls in the Frasier show, and she's crying, and she says, you know, I broke up with my boyfriend like a year ago, and I can't seem to get over it. And Frasier says to her, you're not mourning the loss of the person, you mourning the loss of what you thought your life would be like. And he says to her, let it go. And I heard him. Like, you know, and that was the point, is that we all have, and men, just like women, have expectations for our family life, our relationships, all those different kind of things. And I was angry and I didn't know why. But the reason I was angry is because I'm here now, I was coming up on 30. My life should have been different. We should have had the house, we should have had 2 kids, the 2 cars, we should have had all this stuff. And now I have absolutely nothing. And I think that moment is where God helped me to pinpoint my pain and say, okay, it's not about her. You had stuff about your life that you wanted. And when I embraced the fact that this is where life has me right now, it's not her fault, it's not anybody's fault, God has me here, and I'm alone, and I hate it, I'm angry about it, I feel a few different ways about it. But it was at that point that I began to reconstruct my life and began to ask different questions of myself, of life, of God. Is like, what does this mean? And who am I now? And all those different kind of things. And one of the things that I began to do, 2 things, is that I had a good friend of mine who says, you need to seek help. I am a big proponent of mental health and a therapeutic course to go along, because there are some things you accumulate over time, mentally, emotionally, that you don't know that you're picking up, you know, and you catch these viruses from different situations, and you're sick and you don't know it. You just keep getting in relationships, and it's historical. It's the same thing over and over again. Along with the therapeutic course is my spiritual transformation. You know, I had to really reconnect with God. And you're talking about somebody who had been in church all his life, who was in full-time ministry. I was in pastorate at the time. And so it wasn't a private, you know, divorce. It was somewhat public or whatever, where people are making innuendos and everybody has assumptions and all different kinds of things. It was a lot. But God had to get me to the base denominator of everything in my life, which was me again. And I began to put value on me. I began to dig deeper in my past to say, well, there's some stuff that happened before I got married that she didn't even know about, you know, that kind of, you know, hindered ways in which we loved each other, in which it hindered our success. So I can honor our love. She and I, we're great. You know, I can honor the moments that we had together. It did not work out the way I intended it to work out, but life can go on and you can be happy. And I think that's what love again is about. It's about that rediscovering yourself after the most devastating, not just in divorce, but you can lose a parent, you can lose a child, you can lose a companion for life, and you're realizing that I don't have any control over these things, you know. And so what do I do now? Who am I now? Who am I in relationship to the world? And so love again, you know, is about those processes we go through. And it's a story. It's not a how-to book. It's not a 10-step program or anything like that. It's for you to read it and really come to your own conclusions about what stage you're in. So you follow through this kind of process. But it was at that point, that night on the floor, watching Fraser is where, you know, hey, I'll take it. Yeah, no, I'll take it. Everybody. Absolutely. I'll take it. And that's how that process really jump-started.
Well, and I thank you so much, you know, for being candid about that, because again, I think in my last talking point, I guess we'll kind of say this, that forgiveness part is like, you know, can I forgive myself? You know, am I willing to forgive myself? And I'm assuming that, you know, in this process, especially being, you know, in the roles and the many hats that you had to play, both public and privately, not just as a husband, but, you know, being in the ministry, you know, that forgiveness part, I'm sure, was a big piece. Right. You know, like, how do you even, you know, start it? Because I'm saying, yeah, can I forgive myself? Yeah, I can forgive myself, but I don't even know those pieces. You know, what am I forgiving myself? Am I being honest? You know, you mentioned earlier you had shared a lot of stuff with your ex-wife about, you know, some previous situations, and maybe you didn't have the knowledge tools that you have now to even, you know, really talk about that.